Okay, today I'm talking about an Alliance Johnston sweeper. So this unit in particular is, I guess you could say it's unique. It's kind of doomed, I would say, because of the fact that it's got the Alliance. Some of the stuff that they did to this thing. Alliance is a North American company. Johnston is a UK company. I see a few videos about these older VT650 units. Most of them are sales videos online, but I want to go through an annual, what you're going to look at for annual maintenance after this thing's been out sweeping for a season or a few seasons, and I want to tell you all the things that are wrong with this unit as well, need to be corrected. The newer sweepers are better. They've changed the design, they've updated a lot of things, but there's still a lot of these old ones around. I know you guys working at municipalities, or you're working at shops where municipalities bring their stuff to be fixed. You're going to see a lot of these sweepers. There's quite a few out there. I think they were a little bit cheaper, so they got a bit of a market share. I think the Elgin is, even though they have problems, sweepers are just high maintenance by nature, but the Elgins, I think, they seem to be a little bit better quality. I don't know. I didn't work a lot on Elgins, but I've got a lot of experience with this particular unit. The reason why I say this one's kind of doomed is Alliances went bankrupt. This unit was built just before Johnston and Alliance went bankrupt. Johnston was able to pull through. They went into Chapter 11 though, and they had to restructure their company. And this one was built right around that time when it was happening. This is around a 2010 model. There's some good things about this thing, and there's a lot of bad things about it. So I'm going to go through it today, and I'm going to talk about annual maintenance, like I said, what you're going to want to look for, and then I'm also going to so the things that you want to replace annually, and I'm also going to tell you all the things that have to be modified and upgraded on these units. And so a lot of the modifications that I've done over the years, I've been working on this one. It's probably going on the 12th season. It's not a super high hour unit. It's like 5,000 hours on this thing, on the sweeper unit and the tractor. The other point, I'm not going to get into the tractor, but it's on an American LaFrance chassis, which is basically a Freightliner truck with an American LaFrance cab. However, you probably know American LaFrance went into Chapter 11 around the time this was built, around 2010, after the financial crisis, and they were able to hang on for a little bit longer. There was talk of different companies taking them over. It never happened. So eventually American LaFrance, 4 or 5 years later, maybe not even that long, I can't remember the exact year, they went bankrupt. So this unit is very undesirable, and it's not going to get a lot on trade-in or at the auction because of the Alliance parts that have been changed. Most of it's still Johnston. Anyway, so let's go through this, and I'm going to walk around and talk a little bit about some of the things that you're going to want to do. So annual maintenance items, these tires, you can replace just the tire, and those wheels come apart. Anybody who's worked on one probably knows you can replace the bearing, you can replace the tire in there. Check all your bushings. There's replaceable bushings behind here. These were completely worn out the first time I changed them. They'd had a few seasons on them, and I wasn't aware that those were maintenance, like, you know, such a high maintenance item. I thought they lasted longer. So just give it a shake, see if you have any movement in there. I've added this grease nipple, so that's something that you might want to think about doing. For the time it takes to do that, these bushings have lasted. I've only replaced them once, so that goes to show how much more life you get out of them. So you're going to want to take these cap nuts off. Just a minute, I'm going to shut the radio off. Now the squawk box is off. So you want to take these cap nuts off of here. Got to get this suction hood up. If I can do it by hand, there we go. And blow these out, but you blow them out from the inside. Okay, there's also a liner that's available in here, that yellow liner. So those are the nozzles there. Blow those out really good. Anybody looking after these things knows that you got to do that several times a season. But at the end of the season, I like to do that. I put some, you can see hard surfacing. I find that works good, especially on the fasteners, on the bolt heads and stuff. Just a little dab like that will make them last a lot longer. But generally, these are going to be worn out by the end of the season, and those metal plates. This stuff's pretty expensive. They make a lot of money off this stuff. So you have hard surfaced a lot of this, because these replacement parts, even though they're a consumable, like a wearing item, they still cost quite a bit of money. Surprising. So you want to turn your suction tube rubber about 1/3 of a turn each year, or maybe even several times a year when you're doing your oil changes and stuff like that. But definitely annual maintenance, you want to give those a turn so that it changes where all the debris is hitting that. the inside of these suction holes, these, what do they call those now? It'll come to me. Anyways, the inside's always going to be getting hit in the same spot, so if you turn them a third, it's going to give you a little more life there on those. Alright, also on your gutter broom. So go through several gutter brooms in a season. They're easy to change. That's one good thing about this machine. The bad thing about it is to change the wide sweep broom, you have to drop the gutter broom out and shut the engine off while that's down. It sprays out water when you do that because you have to have your water on to get the gutter broom to come all the way down, so you're going to have to lay in sometimes in water to get your wide sweep brush out. That's a stupid part of this thing, the design. Anyways, it is what it is. That's how you do it. There's replaceable bushings in here, and this is going to get, operators will probably tell you, see, this one's got some movement in it. It's not too bad yet, but those bushings, you can buy a whole kit and replace those. So that's something you want to check annually on in the winter time when this machine gets shut down. Same thing with up here. There's replaceable bushings in here. They're greasable. You want to make sure your operators are greasing those daily. I'd say 8-hour grease points. So just want to give everything a good wiggle and see if anything. There's also bushings in here. All these are greasable bushings, but they're also replaceable bushings and pins, so you can get the kit with everything in it and just go through these. That's not really an annual maintenance item there, but just you want to check them annually. It doesn't necessarily mean if they're using good grease and the operators are doing their job greasing it, they should last several seasons. Alright, so these doors should be left open so that your seals last a long time. They don't get compressed. And then of course the rear door, the salesman will tell you that if you buy one of these. If you're buying one used, maybe they don't know, but the rear door you want to keep open a crack, these ones as well at night and whatnot, so you don't get they don't get a memory in the foam and they get crushed and won't come back to the shape they should be in. Okay, the hopper. So the hopper is stainless steel. Just the inside of this hopper is stainless steel. You'll see all the pieces that have rust obviously aren't stainless steel. So climb up in here. One of the more important things that you want to do if you've got one of these machines is clean out this airway up here. This is a dirty job. It's not very much fun. There's not a lot of room up in here. You can kind of stand in the back of the hopper here, but it's not comfortable. So if you got a guy that you don't like and you want him to quit, give him this job. It's up there. There's an access. You can see the hatch on top on the roof. Take that off. Reach in here as far as you can with a pry bar and dig all the crusty dirt out of here. I've already cleaned this side up a little bit. Go to the other side here. You can see there's a lot that gets hung up there. There's a good example of how much dirt gets caked in here. So down here they put like a 45 so the dirt doesn't build up. Up there they didn't. It's just, I guess, more time fabricating. It's not the greatest design. Fortunately, these parts of the hopper are stainless steel, so they don't rust out, or else there wouldn't be anything left. Here's a little bit better idea of what you're going to find in here. Now, the operators, I'll go through where the operators should be washing and how to cut down on the buildup in here, but just over time, it's going to build up no matter what you do. Every winter, when the machine gets shut down, you're going to want to clean all this out, or get somebody you don't like to do it. Okay, now deflection shields. Now these ones, designs changed a couple times through the years on these. This is one of the more recent ones with this eyebrow. The others, yeah, that side's got the eyebrow. The last one I replaced didn't have this piece right here. This eyebrow was just flat. That would allow debris to go straight back, hit in here, and it'd probably wear too much on the bottom of the airway here. That's that wind tunnel they call it. So these aren't too bad to change. They're a bit heavy and hard on the shoulders to get in and out of here. So I don't like changing them until I absolutely have to. And what you're going to find with these is that they wear out in one spot. So this flapper door opens up and it directs your debris that's being picked up right into about this area here. I've seen where the operators don't check these and it blows right through here and it almost went through the canopy. You don't want that happening. and it's a big repair, and there's paint involved and other things. So since the operators don't want to check these, I've went through it a few times, and you can get double rubber lined. This one's just single rubber lined. Had it for a few years. The last one lasted a few years because of what I did to it. So what I found works well to make these things last, because I mean, you can blow through one of these in spring cleanup season, 6 weeks, and these things will have a hole right through the rubber and right through. It's like 1/8 inch steel. It's not very thick stuff. So I think that the last one of these that I ordered up was about $850 plus shipping, and they're a big item, they're bulky, they weigh a bit, so shipping's gonna nail you too. So by the time this is done, it's gonna be $1,000 with the time that it takes to bolt it in, unbolt the old one and put the new one in. So what I did is added these 2 channels here, hard surfaced them, and they're made out of 1/4 inch, some scrap 1/4 inch steel. Put another big chunk of a cutting edge right here. This is like 5/16 or something thick, and it's cutting edge, so it's pretty tough stuff. That's where a bunch of debris hits, and the other one was worn out right there. You don't want that worn out because it's going to wear into the hopper. The debris is going to go straight that way, and you're going to get a bunch of wear right there. You don't want to wear a hole in your hopper. So these are a wearable item that's replaced several times a year if you don't do some modifications. So what I did with the last one is I welded a really thick chunk of cutting edge right in here on the back just as a safety, and then I bolted these rubber pieces. This is a piece of conveyor. You can get those, usually if there's a mine in your area, you can get rolls of this stuff. It's tough stuff, it lasts a long time. I've tried puckboard, tried a lot of different, not a lot of different materials, but a few different materials, and I found that this stuff lasts just as good as anything, better than most stuff. Puckboard is a joke. I was really surprised how fast it got worn out. The rubber that it comes with isn't bad stuff. Like this stuff lasts pretty good, but eventually it will wear out, and then you got to replace the entire piece. You can't just reline it with rubber, and if you could, it wouldn't even be worth it. So what I did with this one is, you can see back there that I put another chunk of cutting edge that I had. Let's see, I actually just welded that in on the sides. You can't really see it because I've got it covered up. But I did a waffle pattern with hard surface chrome rod, and it was just scrap metal that I used, so all it was labor and some chrome rod, and I welded that in underneath here, left a gap, so now I can slide a chunk of that conveyor in there. These are going to last a long time because they don't get hit as hard on the sides with the debris that gets sucked up. So anyway, so what I'm going to end up doing is, I tried with the old shield that was in here that I replaced, I tried a few different ideas of putting bolts in the sides here, welding nuts on the back, but they just sandblast the bolt heads off, and it makes them hard to get back out again when you got to replace the rubber. So this time I put the bolts down here where they're not going to get hit. When this door's open, it's going to shield that bolt, and then these channels on the side are just going to help me to slip that right in. I only have to undo 2 bolts to get to it. If those bolts wear out, I'll drag the welding cables back in here and weld a couple more on. Cut them off and weld a couple more on. It's going to last a long time, and I got lots of this rubber belting, so instead of unbolting this entire thing and replacing it every time it gets worn out, I'm just going to replace this rubber piece. And like I say, it just wears a hole right around in here where I put that thick steel on the back that's hard surfaced. Okay, the other thing is these flapper doors. So here's one here. These are pretty expensive. Like, we're talking $600 to $800 for these doors, and they take the brunt of the abuse. They wear out pretty quick. So what I've done with this is, again, hard chrome surface. This one's lasts several seasons, and then I just weld a couple bolts in there. The bolts get sandblasted off, but you just, when you can't get the nuts on and off them anymore, take the welder in here, cut them off, weld some new ones in, and then I just use the old flap chunk of rubber here of belting to cut a new one. And I've also double layered this with another piece of 1/4 inch steel welded on there, and that's got a waffle pattern of hard chrome surfacing underneath there. I'll try and get a shot of it, kind of see where I've hard chromed it. That lasts a long time, I found. That'll last several seasons, and I've just got to replace the rubber pieces. So keep that in mind if you own one of these units. This side never gets used. That's all still from the I think I might have replaced that once because it's rubber lined, and the ones that came from factory weren't. They never use the left gutter room, or very, very rarely. So let's see what else found in the hopper. Oh, the other thing is, this is your litter snatch door. It gets all packed up with salt and dirt, road salts that they sweep up from that's been put down in the winter. That's going to get jammed shut. Right now it's probably seized up. All it works on is a little air cylinder. I'll show you on the outside here, the door's up. I can get up there and show you. Right there. That little cylinder, and I believe, yeah, that's an air cylinder, so it doesn't have much power. The operators will say, oh, we can't get the litter snatch open. And that's why. So at the end of the year you want to try and exercise that, work it, get a whole bunch of ice, spray it with penetrating oil, with fluid, film and everything else, and work it a lot so it works the oil in there. Other thing is going to be your hooks down here. These are the hooks that work on sequenced micro switches to close and lock this rear door. Okay, so underneath here they've got it all closed in. They've got some holes drilled in this plate. Bad design, and just over the years, it's fairly clean now because I always pressure wash this out. Over the years that'll just clog up with dirt. The operators don't wash it out, they don't get down here and see all that, and then the hooks won't close on the door. They won't be able to close the door, they'll bring it back to the shop. Micro switches need adjusting once in a while because anybody that's got one of these has probably had to do that. The hooks will try to lock before the door's all the way down if your micro switches are out. One of them's right here. It's just a couple-minute job to slide them down. One of the first things that always happens when you take delivery of these machines, it seems. Okay, so those are some things you want to keep an eye out for on the rear of the unit, on the door and how that works and stuff. I've added a backup camera that's up here, and the reason why is because the operators like to run this thing with the right hand steering position. It's a right or left hand drive vehicle, so they like to go on the right hand side because they mostly sweep gutters on the right hand side and they can't see behind them very well or when they're turning right, so I put a camera there. There's also another camera on top of the mirror down there, and the camera system I used, you can toggle back and forth between the two. It'll use as one monitor so they can pick whichever one they need. Now, another thing is that bar up there. It's hard to see in the light, but anyways, that bar there I've added up a little bit higher here. So what's going to happen is when the operators are hydrovacing and they're using the suction line up there, the boom, they lower it down when it's on the side, and it's the way it's bad design again. It can hit those guards over top. There's metal guards over top of the lights, but they're very thin. They're like 18, 20, I don't know, maybe 16 gauge, maybe. Anyway, those guards get all bent up like that, and eventually they're going to break the lights. So you can see the damage. I can't really hold my camera up that high. You can see some of the damage that's been done there. So after the first couple seasons of seeing that, they also ripped some of the lines off the boom. And they kept getting caught on the lights and those sharp edges. So I made that bar that goes straight across, and it's got like a 45 on the end, so that prevents that from happening. The boom can sit up against it. See, you got that center light in there, that can get damaged as well. Other thing about the snorkel boom is if you're in North America, they use European hydraulic fittings on all this and hose ends, so it's not like your JIC ORS. And there's a elbow up underneath that piece of pipe that I've got the hose clamps holding onto the cylinder, and that elbow on the back has a check valve or something, and it's some special fitting. It can be weeks away. If you're in North America and you have to order that, it can be 6 to 8 weeks away because it's only stocked in England. So if your operator hooks that on who knows what and breaks the elbow off the back, you're not going to get one at the local hydraulic shop. So it's good to protect it. That's what a trainer told me, and that's what I did. I put a piece of channel iron, actually it's rectangle tube, I think, that I cut the bottom off, and then I put it over top of there with a couple hose clamps to protect that. So that's definitely something you want to do if you've got one of these machines and you haven't done that yet. Alright, so carry on now. Talk about a few other weak points on this thing. So I'm gonna probably have to lift. Oh yeah, so here's another one. This is particular to this chassis. I had to notch the battery box. I know it looks hillbilly, but The operators were notoriously bad for leaving the switches on or something on, lights on, running the battery dead, and you can't get the box off with the gutter broom up. So that's in the up position. You can't start the machine to lower the gutter broom because it has no power. So that's what I ended up doing. Like I say, it's not the prettiest solution, but I couldn't figure anything else out there. Okay, keep getting distracted here, but back now. I've got the hopper up so you can see underneath the hopper here. So there's a few items here that you want to check out. Make sure that your pins are greased underneath here. These hinge pins for the hopper, make sure that they're getting greased regularly. See, these ones are a little rusty. I've had to knock those out, clean them up, put them back in. They're not worn out, but just they get rusty and they won't take grease anymore. So it's something you want to do in your annual maintenance checks. Make sure that those are nice and free, because what will happen is if they get really worn out, the hopper will move back and then you don't get a seal up here. That seal is for your fan into your vacuum chamber into the hopper. Now this one's got this is called a CAT, high pressure washer pump. That's just a standard pressure washer pump here. I've rebuilt that I think once. It hardly has any hours on it, so that's what I'm going to get to here. Is that hydraulic motor runs this pump, and it runs off of this hydraulic pump up here. That little hydraulic pump on this auxiliary engine, this is John Deere by the way, mechanical, not computerized. That pump isn't big enough to provide flow for all the implements as well as running this motor here. So what would happen is the operators, and I spent hours and hours on this with Johnston tech support, and this is an Alliance design. That was one of the shortfalls of this particular machine. I don't think there's too many of these out there that are Alliance Johnston, but the hydraulic pump couldn't make enough flow for the implements, the boom up, boom down function, and also with this. So when guys were going out doing the hydrovac work with the boom and the pressure washer, which you got a hose reel, that's an add-on. I'll get to that. They'd get high pressure, they'd start washing, they'd go boom up, boom down, it would steal flow away from the pressure washer. Then this motor would slow down and they'd have low pressure, so they couldn't wash anything. Then they'd boom up, boom down a few more times, pressure would go high again. I went through the system, I checked water pressures, I checked hydraulic pressures, I was with Johnston tech support. This machine was still on warranty when this problem came up, and it's never been fixed. So this pressure washer pump is pretty much never used because of that factor. It's a shame. It was, like I say, it's never worked right. The fix to this, the ultimate fix, they told me, is to put 2 hydraulic pumps on there. It's not, last time I checked, it wasn't that expensive. It's a few hoses and then the tandem pump setup. So basically just a hydraulic pump, I think, that goes underneath that one, and then that one drives off of it. So you only have to buy the one pump. Oh, the other thing while I'm walking past the door here is litter snatch is made out of this super brittle, thin plastic, like not even 1/8 of an inch thick. And if you're up here trying to, or the operator climbs up on this back door maybe to play around with this door that always seizes up, or clean the backup camera off or something like that, and he steps on that, break it. I've replaced that twice. I've glued it back together and tried to fix it, because that's like an $800 and some item. So the last time I just went to another parts supplier, asked for, no, actually the parts supplier for these sweepers, and I got a piece of aluminum pipe, hydrovac pipe for it. So that's not going to happen again, and it's a lot cheaper for the aluminum pipe, and I was able to replace that. That's a bad design. So we've got our boom up here as well. Inside there isn't a bearing, there's 2 plates with grease channels, and if you don't grease that, the boom will seize up. And I mean, even when they're not using it, you have to grease that regularly, because inside the hopper, it's always getting pelted with mud and water and debris, and it just gets corroded shut. And then I had to bring it in the shop, use the overhead hoist, lift it up, and then grease it. The bad design is that the grease nipples, when this machine was new, were on top of the hopper, so you had to grease that, you had to take a ladder and climb up on top of the hopper. It's stupid, it's unsafe. The hopper's always wet when they come back. Nobody was doing it, nobody even knew the grease nipples were there. So you take some Synflex and make a couple hoses that come down, make them long enough, you wrap them around that so that when the hopper's turning, it's not going to tear the hoses off. Route them down through here. I just went down through the side here and drilled a hole. They're connected up top with a T-fitting, so there's one grease nipple right here. Operators keep greasing that. There's no problem with the boom seizing up, but that used to be a regular occurrence. Now back to the story about the pressure washer. So this pressure washer here, Finally got to the point where I checked relief valves, hydraulic pressures, the water pressure relief valve, just went right through the entire system. And what they basically told me is either put a new pump in there, like the second pump, or else put, this is kind of a Mickey Mouse fix, but plumb your back water line here that usually just goes to a garden hose into a Honda pressure washer pump. Got this cheap pressure washer pump and use that. It comes off, I just bolted it onto the step there. Put a flap over it because when they dump the hopper, mud would go all over it, but it works good. The operators seem okay with it. They fire it up and use that to wash to do their hydrovac work, catch basins and whatnot over the years. So as Mickey Mouse as it is, it actually works okay, and that's what the people who sold this to the people I work for told me to do. Now there's the other thing is, this water filter is, you want to be washing it out every week. It's easy to get that out of there. A salesman tells you when you buy one of these how to do it. You don't lose water when you do it. That's actually a good design. So you want to wash that out or have a spare and just swap them out and wash the old one. It's reusable. However, there's another water filter in here in the tank. And the first time I took that out, it was completely caked. We got a lot of hard water here. So that's something that you want to take out and either wash or else replace annually. Okay, so here's rubber lined suction tube. These are something else you want to check. This one's last a couple years, couple seasons. The rubber lining's coming off, so it'll probably last one more season and it'll wear through the steel. I'm not going to replace that until it's worn out. Those are pretty expensive. Same with this one. You can get rubber lined ones. I was putting a rubber liner in these. It was a really nice part. You didn't have to take much apart. You took this hose clamp off, it wrapped around the outside, and the hose clamp would hold it on. This is intake trunking. That's the word I couldn't think of. Trunking here. Anyway, so the liners, they quit making those now. It's just the whole piece of steel, so you have to unbolt this. It doesn't take that long to do it. These can be rotated quarter turn or a third or like a half a turn each year to make them last a little bit longer. But once the rubber lining's gone out of these, they don't last long. Get maybe a season out of them, maybe not even, depending on how your sweeping goes. Now your control cabinet. In here, this thing would get like an inch of mud in here. These aren't sealed up very good at all. So I've made some rubber mats. It took some time. I had to take the water valve out and just to seal it up a little better. It still gets lots of dirt, but the thing is, the reason why you want to keep it clean is you've got all these electric solenoid valves in here. Your electric water valves are in here. You don't want this full of dirt and water and mud. So that's a wafer valve, and each section of that is different because it controls, it's your electrically operated air valve, and each section's different, each wafer, and if one of those goes, it's like 800 bucks for everything on this thing. Seems like it's like 800 bucks. Oil injection for your air system. This one didn't come with that. The old sweeper did have it. You can order that and add it on. It's just a generic part. You can even get it online. You don't have to get it from your dealership. Show you underneath. There's your wafer valve manifold there, all the air lines coming out that control all your air functions. This is a very complicated setup with the sweeper. This is all relay logic. That's another bad part. That box there is full of relays that are interlocking and work off ground sense and stuff like that. So some people hate computers and say, oh no, I want the relay, the solid state stuff, because it's simple and it's easy to work on and you don't need to hook a laptop up to it to diagnose, and on, and they're right. That can get expensive. But in this case, the computer controlled Vansco or an Allen Bradley. I think the new Johnston machines use a Vansco computer system. It's very basic. It's not too expensive, I don't think, to get the translator to hook up to it. But you can do most of your diagnostics without hooking a computer into the Vansco and Allen Bradley systems. I've worked on those in city buses, and they're just a basic operating system that's used for gas plants and stuff like that, but they also use them on machines like this, and it's a lot easier and quicker to troubleshoot with one of those systems than it is with a relay logic system like this. That is a bad design, and that's what they sold these machines on. Is it's not computerized, it's simple. It's not simple. It's you know, these guys needed to come into the 20th century, but they built a cheaper machine, so they got the bids, they got the sales out there. Anyway, so let's continue with the annual maintenance items on here. So I can talk about. So the suction hood, of course, there's a few things that you want to do there, but the liners didn't come from the dealership. That came from an aftermarket parts company. If you're in Canada and you want to know who that is, I can just comment on the drop a comment and I'll tell you who the company name is. I'm not gonna. They're not paying me to advertise or anything. They're just they're a lot better service, and they make a lot of these things. Like if this suction hood, these do wear out. They come rubber. The first one didn't come rubber lined. It was just a cast aluminum part. Eventually they'll wear out on one of these up here where it goes from square to a round piece. I've been working on these machines. You'll see that. You can get a rubber lined piece, it's more money, but you still have to replace the whole thing. That's a big job because you've got to take all your nozzles out, you've got to take your guards and everything off and transfer them all over to your new suction hood. You could keep one in stock with all that stuff if you want to, but it's a lot of overhead. Or you can just buy one of these plastic liners and replace that once or twice a season, or maybe even this one I think lasted all season. But just keep an eye on it. I like to cover them with grease before I put them in because it makes them a lot easier to get out. It's a bit of a pain to get it out of there. But that is something where you can just take all your curtain off the outside. Usually by the time that liner's wore out, it's time to replace these anyway. And then you can get it up inside there. You take the trunking off the top, and again it curls over and is held in there by the trunking. It's a really nice part, and that saves time and money not replacing that. So that's something that you want to get if you're replacing the whole nozzle as a part. These tires here wear out in a season because the suction nozzle is always on an angle like that side. You can see it. It doesn't run parallel to the machine, so these tires constantly scrub, and they're going to see how they're worn on an angle. That's what happens. Like I said, you can take these wheels off here. Take that nut off, pop the wheel off. Take these out. 10 mil bolts. Change the solid rubber tire on there. So that's something that it's pretty much an annual maintenance item on here. Hopefully I'm not forgetting anything. Okay, so here we got some of these. I think some of these didn't come. This one didn't come with a down pressure regulator. So basically what was happening is the wide sweep broom on this unit, that was another bad design, but it was the cheaper model, and it was just gravity. It was just the weight of the frame and the wide sweep broom is all the down pressure you would get, and it started bouncing, and then it would go through brooms like crazy because as soon as the broom wore like half an inch, it'd start bouncing, and the operator would come back and want a new broom, and the new broom wouldn't bounce for maybe a week, and then it'd start bouncing. So it was going through brooms like crazy, and it actually broke this piece here, this yoke part. So that was warranted, but I just welded it back up and welded some reinforcement on it, that flat piece. And it's been fine ever since. The ultimate fix for that was to put the down pressure regulator in so that you can actually have pressure pushing down on the broom. Doesn't need much, just enough that the cylinders are firm. These cylinders here have a little bit of pressure on the top of the piston, and it's not just like in a float situation where anything can make that broom bounce. So it's just enough to hold the broom down. You want too much down pressure, you're going to start chewing through brooms too quick. And the operators also shouldn't be playing around with that one. So you get it set. There's a pattern in the manual, I think it's about 4 inches. Set the broom in the spring before it goes out to sweep, and you shouldn't have to play around with it unless your operators get in there and start monkeying with it. The other two, this is in the operator's manual as well, 2 regulators here for your right hand, left hand slew. So those are going to independently adjust pressure on each side of the broom, the wide sweep broom. These don't need, so there's one that's red on this side there, one green on this side, so I think the green is the right hand, red is left hand slew. So those, when you're checking your pattern, if you got a heavy pattern on one side, that's how you're going to adjust independently. If it's 5 inches wide on one side, when you put the gutter broom down, or pardon me, the wide sweep broom down on the floor, that's how you check your pattern, is you put it down like it's in sweeping operation on the shop floor. There will be a mark where the broom has been sweeping the floor. You back the machine up and measure that. If it's wider on one side, you know you've got to adjust these regulators here. They're right behind the intake trunking. Okay, so that's something else that you want to do. That's more in the spring before the unit goes out to sweep. You can check your pattern. You can check it in the fall before you park it, but you're probably going to end up doing it again in the spring anyways. Now, let's see what else I had to modify. Oh yeah, let's talk about the fan. So the reason why it's so important for the airway to be clean is a big chunk of dirt, mud will get stuck up inside that intake, and it'll go through here and hit the fan. Get some light in there. Okay, so that's it's blowing out. Just pardon me, it's sucking in from there. That's right, so it's drawing air through there, so that's why it goes down through. And well, I got that right. Is that the intake or exhaust? Anyways, it gets full. It's the intake, so it goes through there so that most of the mud is filtered out by everything, the baffles and the hopper and everything else. It gets down to here, so you're going to get mud build up in there no matter how good the operators wash it out during the year. A chunk of that can come out and hit the fan, put the fan out of balance, and that's it for the fan. It'll just eventually wear out the gearbox. So the operators every day have to wash out in here, lift the canopy up and wash it out. There's okay, there's the outlet, so that's going out. That goes into some baffles up there. The baffles aren't needed. I've taken them all out of this machine. It doesn't make a difference. They just hold mud and dirt. Okay, so the hopper full switch is down there on top of the axle. It's really simple. It's just that lever right there. Right there. That lever touches, makes contact. Get that picture of it here. Makes contact when the springs sag a bit when they get loaded up and the differential gets a little bit closer. It's this. Hits that, makes a contact, light goes off in the cab, says the hopper's full. When these machines come from new, usually that's way out of whack, and the operators say the hopper's only half full when I dump it. I'm dumping too much, I'm going out to the dump site and back to where I'm sweeping, it's taking too much time. They get underneath the machine with a couple wrenches and they start adjusting that up until it overflows. When it overflows, you end up with the hopper full of water and mud coming out of there. That's not good. What that does is it hits the back of the alternator here. The alternator has a diode in it. That's for the overcrank protection. So when the operators are starting the engine, if they hold the start button down and the engine starts, it doesn't keep the starter engaged. So it doesn't grind the starter and the ring gear. What happens is the first time that gets wet, it shorts out, it blows the diode, you lose your overcrank protection. The reason why you want the overcrank protection is when you hold the starter button down in the cab, it keeps your intake heater, which is your grid heater right here, it keeps power to that. So on a cooler morning in the fall or in the early spring when you're sweeping, and this thing doesn't want to start without heat anyways, you want to glow that, but you want to keep heat going in there after the engine's started, or else it stalls and it takes quite a while to start again. You got to crank it and start it, and it runs for 5 seconds and shuts off again. With the overcrank protection, you can't hold your start button down and keep power to your grid heater without the starter staying engaged with the ring gear. And that alternator, I remember the first one I replaced when this happened, when the machine first came from new, and I don't think it was warranted because they say that, well, you guys got it wet, that's your fault. I believe it was around $2,000. I went to a John Deere dealership. They wanted around $800, and then the last one I replaced, because this was, you know, even with this cover, I just built this cover for it to guard it. The operators start messing around with the overload switch and overfill the hopper, blow the alternator. So the last time I got a Dixie alternator, I crossed the part number, and what the people that sold this, the dealership, said was, this alternator is specific to this machine. You can't even get a John Deere one to replace it because it doesn't have the overcrank protection in it. I called the John Deere dealership. They said if it's the same part number, we'll get one in. It worked. It was still very expensive. When that one went, I replaced it with just a Dixie alternator for $250 from a local parts supply place. It had the overcrank protection and worked just fine. So that's a bad design on this machine, but it's also pretty bad conduct from the people who sold it. I won't mention that. They don't actually. The dealership's changed, so I definitely don't want to start mentioning names there. But anyway, that's a point. That's a bad design, and that's something that you definitely, if it hasn't been done, do it, because that can be expensive. Also, make sure that your limit switch, your overload switch, is set to the proper. It takes a little while. You got to just have some patience, adjust it. Make sure, check your load. Go get the hopper full. The light comes on. If the hopper's not full, adjust it a little bit more. If you start getting water coming out of there, you got to turn it back down until it's not happening anymore. Like, look at how dirty all this engine is already, and that's not even happening. So you can imagine, not only does it wreck the alternator, but it just fills this tub up with dirt and mud. And I wash this out every season. That's the other thing I want to talk about. Another part bad design with this machine is they put the engine in this tub. So the people that sold the machine said, and I don't know if it's in North America that this is supposedly the law or not, but what the story was is that they had to do that for emissions. I think it was for if an oil, they said if there's an oil leak on the engine or a hose failure or something, that it has to be contained in the engines in this tub, and also for noise control. Their competition didn't do that, and they still sell units in North America, at least anyways. So I think that was another falsehood, that they said that. And this just is a bad design. The engine sits in this tub, you can't get anything on the bottom of the engine. They put hoses and things underneath there. The oil drain is got to be on a hose that's routed to the outside of this stupid tub, and it's just totally unnecessary. The new ones, they've changed that. Like I said, the new design, they've changed a bunch of things and made them better. Other thing about these is this is called the step-up drive gearbox back in here. Okay, this has got a couple gears in it, bull gears. It's kind of like a final drive on a small dozer, just smaller. Check the oil in there there's a sight glass right there. Anyways, check the oil. Operators should be checking the oil every day. It takes gear oil. You want to build kind of a labyrinth and put a different breather on these, because the breather that it comes with is not high enough up, so it doesn't have a couple of elbows in it like that. I know it looks goofy, but that's what was suggested to do. That is an upgrade. So the breather that it came with, I've got a Caterpillar breather in there right now, but the breather that it came with was put directly into the top of this plate here on top of the gearbox, and every day it would spray a bunch of oil out. Like this one's even got a little bit of dampness there, but it's not anywhere near what it used to be. It used to spray oil out constantly, or constantly refilling it. That's a bad design. The gearbox itself, the first one wore out. The dealership wanted around $6,800 plus I think a core deposit for this. What happens is the seals that go into the fan in here, you end up with oil in there. Chances are it's not just this blown seal. You can change it. That's what I was told to do, because that was the cheapest thing to do. Throw a new seal in it, pull the fan out, change that, see if that fixes it. It didn't fix it. What it is the bearings are even still tight in here. They oval out the housing on this gearbox. So if you go back to your dealership and ask for another one, that's what they're going to give you, is another gearbox with softer cast in it. The casting's soft, or something's wrong with it, or it's not balanced right, or the tolerances, and it's going to wear out again. So I think that was like 3,000 hours, not even. That problem happened. I was able to get one that was remanufactured, and there was a harder piece of steel put in where it ovals out. It's been good ever since. Run good synthetic oil in there. Check your hydraulic filter. I just change the hydraulic filter every year on this one. Just an annual service item, and then I think the hydraulic oil is good for about 2,000 hours. Other thing on these is the fan. So inside the fan here, you have to be careful of, that's called the transition ring. Yeah. So you can see how, got interrupted again there. Anyway, so that's called the transition ring. I'm going to zoom in on that, and it's about, I'll show you a new one here. It's like 1/8 of an inch thick metal ring, and it's spring loaded. Underneath those are actually pieces of rubber there, that piece, and there's a spring inside there, so it's adjustable, and that, you don't want that contacting the fan. You can see that this one has been contacting the fan a little bit. It's normal, it's common. You'll hear it when you shut the engine off and the fan's still turning. You'll hear it hitting something, scrubbing something, and that's what's happening, is it's hitting the transition ring. That's not good, because eventually that will heat up the fan and it'll break the fan, and I've replaced this fan because that had happened in the past. Okay, the fan, you want to check the thickness of these as well on your annual service. See, these ones are in really good shape, but eventually they'll get really thin on the impeller, and they'll actually start to get kind of a U shape. That's time to change the impeller. Here's the new transition. It's going to go back in. It's not that bad of a job to change these, really. So that's how thick the new one is. And you can see how worn the old one that was in there is. So to adjust the transition ring, there's these 3 studs. Okay, there's springs that go on here so that it holds it. It's got some resilient, like, you know, some movement in it. And those studs come through. There's one there, one on the other side, and there's one down below, right down in there. See it there? Yeah. and that's how you adjust it. So you spin the fan by hand. There is a little bit of movement side to side. Make sure that the fan is all the way towards the transition ring. Spin it by hand like this. Make sure you don't get your fingers caught in there, that's heavy. And if you hear it contacting the transition ring, then you just, I think it's like 1/8 of an inch clearance. You go in there, there's windows, I think there's a window right there that you can check it with. Open that up. So the gearbox is a bad design, but you can get an aftermarket one. I wouldn't go to a dealership to get another one of those. I'd get the remanufactured one that's been updated because it's lasted way longer. Underneath the gearbox drain there's a hose, and it's only on these early models, the VT650. It hits one of these, that reinforcing kind of wall rib thing in there. There's a baffle in this engine tub that it sits in. It's just about impossible to get to. The hose will contact that from new, the drain hose from that gearbox. I'll show you where it comes out of this tub. It's another reason why I don't like this engine tub thing idea. It comes out there, and I've moved this one out a little bit. Just a minute, gotta answer the phone. Man, distracted again. People just have, or pardon me, interrupted again. People just don't have any manners. Don't they understand that I gotta make videos? Jeepers. Okay, where was I now? Okay, so gearbox drain. Dang it, quit. Oh, shut up. Stupid phone. Engine oil drain is on that side, gearbox drain is on this side. That's the hose that has to be replaced. I don't think I can get in there to show you. Exactly, yeah, I can actually. So you can see there where there's that kind of a wall. It's notched. It's not the prettiest because you try and get something in there to notch that with like a cutting torch or a plasma cutter. It's tough. So the hose, the gearbox drain hose from factory hits that. This engine vibrates like crazy. It's a 4-cylinder diesel. It wears a hole in it. The operator doesn't know it, drains all the oil out of the gearbox, and then you're out a $6,000 gearbox. So you change the fittings on the bottom. It is a bear to get in there and get that stuff out. Good time to do it is if you ever have the gearbox out for something else. Do it at that time because, as you can see, so that baffle, bad design. Engine's sitting in a tub and they wall it in like that, so you can't get anything. So the hose was a little bit longer, but it's so hard to change that it was a little bit too long. I just made this bracket so it sticks out a little further. I'm fine with that. It clears everything. It's never been a problem. Engine oil drain comes out of this hose, goes up into the oil pan. That's at least they did that so that the oil doesn't drain inside this stupid tub. Here's your water pump. So this is a V-twin water pump. They last a long time. I think I've rebuilt this one once, but you do have to grease it. I put so there is a grease nipple that goes on the end there. That's on what they call the crankshaft. It's an eccentric shaft that just super simple, runs diaphragms, really easy to rebuild this pump. Not that easy to get out. You can see where there's it's cracked there because I cut windows out of that mount, that bracket that holds this to the hydraulic motor that turns it right there, which looks like it's leaking a bit, so I'm gonna have to get greasing on that. Anyway, I had to cut those windows in there because from new there's tiny little circles. You can hardly get a wrench in there. It takes forever to get those bolts to get that water pump out of there. Do you have to take it apart once in a while? That's a bad part of the design on this. So if I take it out, I'll reinforce that where it's cracked. I'll weld the crack up and I'll reinforce that. I'll put some more pipe on there. Really thin wall pipe they used for this stupid bracket. So that's not a very nice design. Now the other thing is that no operator is going to open this rubber flap up here and reach in there with the grease gun every day. Maybe some do, but not the ones here. And grease that pump. It should be greased once a week with good, really good synthetic grease. It's like, oh, it's on a bit of an angle. Something bumped it. Anyways, it's still taking grease at this point. So I put an elbow on there, put a grease line up to a grease nipple right here, just like the ones for the boom, the suction boom. It's just relocated so you can actually get at it. So for changing the transition ring out, you've got to take this whole cover off, and you're gonna find some, if you have to do this job, you're gonna find some silicone in there holding the this cover onto the fan housing. You don't have to put silicone in there. It makes it a real pain to get it off. You've got to drive screwdrivers and chisels and stuff underneath there to get it separated. Don't bend it while you do, and it'll come off there. It's not that bad. It doesn't take that long. You'll take this plate out to get the bolts underneath. You got to take the fuel filter mount off to get the bolts underneath there. pull that housing off. It's easier to do when you have an overhead hoist. It would be tough to muscle that in and out of there, especially putting it back in. But anyway, it's not that bad too, and you can set your transition. You got to put it back together and set your transition ring after. The gap in there is spec in the manual. I think, like I say, it's around, I think it's a metric spec. I think it's around like 1/8 of an inch though. So that's mostly everything that was wrong with this machine. Now, a lot of what I found out about this machine was from man, remember how I was telling you that Alliance went bankrupt? It was one of the Alliance training hand mechanics. He's an absolute guru with these machines, and he started his own business when Alliance went bankrupt and laid him off. He offers training for these machines, and he told me a lot of what I've just shared with you about them. Now, you can hire him to do training as well, and there's also the good news about this machine is, even though Alliance is gone and you're not going to get any parts or manuals or anything on the Alliance part of this, which is mainly that rear pressure washer part that's never worked right, unfortunately. But the people that Alliance laid off have all went and started their own businesses, and some of them make aftermarket parts for this. So you don't have to go straight to your dealer. You have an option of going to another parts. Like I say, just drop a comment if you're interested in finding out who that is there in Canada. So it saves shipping if you're in North America from the UK. Some stuff still comes from the UK, but they stock an amazing amount of stuff, and they come up with the liners you can change inside the suction nozzle here. You can't get, at least last time I checked, you couldn't get that from the dealership. You had to go to this aftermarket company to do it. They're excellent to deal with, very knowledgeable people. That's the good part about this machine, is even though this one, I think there's a lot of corners cut on this particular one because it was right around when the two companies and the company that made the tractor, which is a whole nother story, all were going bankrupt. I think this one was slapped together, so we had some extra problems with it. Now, once you go through it and get all that stuff figured out, it's actually, when you get that broom, that wide sweep broom set up, it's incredibly easy on brooms. When you have the, like I say, you got to make sure that if you're buying one of these that you have the down pressure regulator, because some of them were built without that. It's not a big deal to put one in there. You just got to get the diagram. It's a couple of air lines you hook up. It's really easy, but you just have to know, because there's a lot of airline hookups in there. Like, there's a lot of different circuits. It's very complex because you've got a hydraulic system and an air system that are all running off of this relay logic, and then you got the water system as well, water valves and a water pump in there. So it's a complicated system, so you have to make sure you're hooked to the right ports and things like that, so you don't end up with functions that aren't supposed to be coming on when you put the gutter broom down and stuff like that, or when you put the wide sweep broom down, stuff like that. So that's something to keep in mind if you're going to buy one of these. If you're going to the auction, make sure it's got that regulator. Make sure it's got the twin hydraulic pumps. That's just a way better system. Annual maintenance, water valve, I like to take this right out. So it's got a lot of hoses underneath here. That's what routes all your water pressure circuits underneath here. I like to take that right out, and I found CLR. So if you end up with, cleans the valves really well. If you end up with dripping water out of the valves, usually it's because one of these, you take it apart, it's pretty simple. They just get calcium buildup in them, and there's a little screen in there that you got to clean out, or take the screen out when it gets clogged up. But anyway, the valve just hangs up a little bit because it gets some stuff like some calcium or something from the water, or a little bit of grit in there from the fire hydrant you're filling from. So every winter, basically, take all that apart and mark your lines and stuff like that. Take that valve right out. All those valves I clean, and CLR usually works good. Takes all the corrosion off and just soak it in. Okay, so I think that's about it for annual maintenance. Oh yeah, the other thing is, so you're going to want to fill the system up if you're parking it outside in a freezing environment. This one gets parked outside for the winter. That's okay to do that, but you have to get some windshield washer antifreeze into the system, fill the water system with it, just like you would with an RV. So this one does have the valves, so you can turn this valve, and air will go through the water system, and you'll see water coming out all your valves here. You can hold your pressure washer open. See, there's still some pressure in there. Hold that open that valve up down there, and you'll see water coming out, so you'll know when it's dry. But you still want to put not windshield washer, RV antifreeze in the system. So the way to do that is take this big hose off here. Then your water level sensor is right here. So you unplug that Deutsch connector there, just two wires just jump the harness, so it thinks that the float is floating in water. It's got water in the tank, and then your pump can turn on, and you just dump windshield, RV antifreeze in there. Fill this, get some in the system, and then just wait until it's coming out all your nozzles. Make sure that you keep dumping it in there. You have somebody dumping it in there while the pump's running, so it doesn't run dry. Once it's coming out all the water nozzles, you're good to park it outside. I always take the nozzles apart and blow them out. And the first time in spring, I don't know what it is, if it's sediment in the hydrant they fill from, or if it's sediment that's in the tank, the water tank, but all these nozzles, the first time they come out sweeping, the first day they come back and all these nozzles are clogged again. So I blow them out before I park it for the winter, but then the first tank of water they go through in the spring, I end up blowing them out again. It seems like it's just, I think that's something to do with our water system. So those are some of the things to look for. I've found something else. There's a bad design. I got to cut the zip ties off yet. You can see I replaced a hydraulic line there, and I ended up having to cut the old line because we couldn't get the fittings. Like I say, these are European fittings. Got to get them sometimes definitely from the city. Sometimes they got to come from Europe. They're just not common, and that's something that's a real pain on this machine. This stuff here, this pump, hydraulic pump and the water pump, well, GIC, because it was put on in North America by Alliance before they went bankrupt. So those hoses are little, like 1/4 inch hydraulic lines, and they run your door and stuff like that, and the boom, and they run inside the sweeper frame. You can see how the frame's like boxed. That's really inconvenient. So one of those went, for whatever reason, the machine pressures all those up for a few seconds every time you start the auxiliary engine up here, and they dump out a bunch of hydraulic oil. So the operator comes back, it's got a major hydraulic leak. It did, it was foaming oil out of there. It turns out I think it was one of the boom lines, but it still gets hydraulic pressure when you for a few seconds when you start the engine up, so it was leaking all over the place. So I ended up having to find it, because there's a whole bundle of wires, little hoses in there. Fish a bunch of them out to find the one that was leaking. It was way up underneath the engine tub there, and so that's not a convenient design. There's no reason why those couldn't be armored and just zip tied up to the outside where you could get at them and you could see them. So anyways, those are some things that you want to think about if you're going to purchase one of these. I know there's a lot of these machines out there. Like I say, I think they were a cheaper option because they were built a little bit more basic. However, they're still quite complex. All sweepers are. There's a lot going on, and those are some of the problems that you want to address if you have one of these machines. Or if you're in another country, maybe you got one at an auction, it got shipped there, and it's a high hour unit. Those are some things to look at that you're going to want to address. I think the biggest thing is that gearbox and the drain line coming out of the step-up drive gearbox, because that's a very high dollar item to have to replace, and you want to replace it with something that's better than what came out of there, so that you're not doing it again in another 2,000 hours or less, who knows. So those are some of the good things, and a lot of bad things about this machine. It is what it is. I'm not a fan. I guess if you're in Europe, the fittings are common, but in North America, these fittings that they use, BKP or BKT or whatever they are, BKP I think is what they're called, and then there's some British standard pipe fittings. They're hard to get, and oftentimes we'll order them, wait 2-3 days. That's what happened with that last hose I was showing you, and the wrong fitting came up. It was a proper design, like type of fitting, but it was the wrong thread, so it wouldn't thread onto the fittings in the housing. Then you got metric pipe fittings that go into the valve bank, so even if I wanted to change it to something common like GIC, I wouldn't be able to get the proper adapter fitting, or that would be several days away. So those are some of the downfalls, and sure, you might pick one of these machines up cheap, but you got to be prepared to deal with some downtime just because of that, just because of uncommon fittings. This micro switch here that I showed you earlier that has to be adjusted has to close first. This switch closes first, and then the latch is underneath here, the other micro switch latches the door shut. So if the latches try to lock the door shut before the door's all the way closed, it'll stay open because it hits the latches, can't close all the way. So that's something that's really common, usually happens like a day after these things are delivered to the customer. Anyway, so I know there's some of those machines out there. I know there's some guys working for municipalities and private sweeping companies that probably are having to deal with these, and those are some of the things that I found. Drop some messages in the comments, tell me what you think about these machines and what you think about this video. Maybe there's some other things that should be done to this particular machine. You know, maybe that water pump setup, if somebody has had that same problem as this one and you put the second pump on and it cured it, or if you found something else wrong, let me know, because this is going to be around for a few more years before it goes to auction, and I'd like to get that figured out. That'd be convenient. Anyway, everybody stay happy, keep turning wrenches. I'll catch you later. Okay, doing some annual maintenance on the sweeper here today, and I just want to show everybody a little bit about these water valves. So here's where all your water system valves are, electric controlled. In the cabinet here, this cabinet should be sealed up. I've put foam on the sides here. You can just get some foam for RV type stuff at your local parts store. Seal that up. I put foam around the whole door, and it's still, you can see the amount of dirt that gets in there and mud. I've made rubber mats to go on through there. So without the sealing this up, there was like close to an inch of dirt in here by the end of the year, and you don't want a whole bunch of mud and salt and stuff like that in this area because of all your electrical stuff. That's your air valve there. Anyways, so you take the coil pack off like that, make sure you know which one goes where. These are all marked. CW4 on this one right there. So if you don't know where they go, there's a legend up on the door, unless it's been ripped off of your machine. That'll tell you where everything goes back if you do get these mixed up, but I just take them out one at a time. I've taken the whole valve out, like the whole manifold out in the past. That works too, but you just have to mark your lines. Underneath here is all your water lines up there that connects to them. Get some light in there. So you can see some of the connections up in there. I guess you can't. There you go. Those are your water lines from below. They go out to all your nozzles, spray bars. So I got one apart here I'm working on. What I find is works well. This year they weren't that dirty. We do have some hard water here in town. This is the body of the valve here. You take it apart. There's an O-ring that goes in there, seals it. So you want to check your O-ring, see if it's cut or anything, or if it needs to be replaced so it'll leak water. And the actual inside of the valve is right here. So it just seals that opening there, that part of the valve. 4 screws in here. Take those out, take it apart, and what you'll find is if these valves are leaking water, if you've got constant water dribbling out your nozzles, usually what it is when you take it apart, there's a bunch of buildup of calcium or whatever's in your water on this part of the valve here. That's your solenoid. It's the part that the solenoid actuates there. And then you'll see a bunch of corrosion in there as well, like not corrosion, but more like calcium buildup and mineral buildup in there. Whatever you got in your water, depends how hard the water is that you're filling up from. In this municipality, it's well water, comes from the ground. It's got a lot of calcium and other mineral in it. So I just use straight CLR in here and just like a toothbrush. Clean everything up, let it soak for a little while, and then wash it out with fresh water. You'll end up, you'll see right away if the valves are hanging up. You'll see a bunch of buildup in there. Like I say, this year it's not that bad. I don't have a very good example of what a dirty valve looks like, but anyway, when you take them apart, you'll know right away. Like this will all be white and have a bunch of gray buildup on it, and then it won't want to move freely in the body like that. It'll hang up a little bit, and then you'll end up with water dribbling out to your water nozzles on your spray bar and in your suction hood and stuff. So anyway, I just wanted to show everybody that's part of the annual maintenance that you do on these machines. See there the CLR reacting, bubbling off all that mineral and stuff that was stuck to those from the water. Like I say, it's undiluted, and I just leave it in there for a while and scrub it with the toothbrush a bit, and then rinse all the CLR off, put it back together, take a couple more out, and scrub those up too. So I'm gonna carry on with the annual maintenance on it, and I'm gonna start working on that transition ring next, sitting on the shelf right here.